The big question is, are you winning ad business from the likes of Facebook this year?
Well, I think there's definitely a lot to go around, obviously, as people start transitioning dollars away from traditional mediums like television. I think the really important thing for us has been the way we've evolved the business over the last 3 years. So, 3 years ago at Cannes, we announced full screen vertical video, and people thought we were crazy, right? At the time, everyone had little postage stamp sized video, and that's how they were running ads all over mobile. And so we started cutting everything full screen, vertical, and now that's just become a dominant format all across mobile. And I think what we tried to do since then was start solving a lot of the problems advertisers were having. In the beginning, people said, gosh, advertising is really expensive on Snapchat. It's really hard to buy. It's hard to measure. And over the last 3 years, we went from being one of the most expensive ad products to now today being the least expensive actually in our peer set, thanks to programmatic and things like that.
There's been a lot of attention here on the fact that Facebook has copied some of your most popular features. How do you address that when you're talking to advertisers?
I think we just have to continue to innovate, and obviously I think one of the things that's become really clear over the past couple months is how important values are to consumers and therefore to advertisers. So I think now a lot of times when people are buying advertising products, they of course want them to work, so we have to provide a lot of ROI and value for advertisers, but they also want to feel good about what they're buying. They want to feel like they're having a positive impact on the world.
But if your stock is still down 90% from your IPO price, what does it mean if you're innovating and someone else is copying that innovation? How do you talk to investors about this issue? I
think one of the things we've seen in technology over time is that the innovators win in the long run, so we just have to stay focused on our customers and continue to deliver great innovation.
But does that mean that you're going to continue innovating and that Facebook's going to continue copying your innovation? How do innovators win in the long run when you have a giant that massive that could copy the innovation?
I think usually when the innovators win is when a really big platform shift happens, which is why we're investing so heavily in things like augmented reality. We believe ultimately in the next couple decades that computing is going to be overlaid on the world around you. And ultimately that's why it's so important for us to focus on the camera, because when you open our application today, you open into your own experience rather than a feed of everyone else's experiences. And so starting that journey to opening into your own experience and overlaying computing on top of that ultimately will be very important for us.
Now those lenses are also something that Facebook does. Facebook is also now competing against you in the premium content business. Facebook is investing in content for Watch. You have Discover. Facebook has talent such as Tom Brady making content for them. How are you going up against Facebook when you're trying to get the same premium content?
I think one of the really unique things we've done in our ecosystem is really protect the friend graph. So for us, it's really important that you feel comfortable expressing yourself on Snapchat. And so what we've tried to do over time is make sure that you only add people that you really care about, so you don't end up in that awkward situation with 1,000 friends you don't know at all. And so I think for us, that's a long-term competitive advantage by being really careful about who you're actually sharing your content with on your service. It makes you more likely to create and feel comfortable creating.
But what about that premium content business, though? What Facebook is trying to do with Watch, what you're doing with Discover, that's separate from the friend graph. That's the kind of deal that you're striking with parent companies, like our parent company, NBC Universal. There are now a lot of people competing for that very same kind of content.
I think the really important thing as you look at the premium content business is how you're generating that traffic in the first place. So if you look at a business like a Netflix, for example, they invest a lot in tentpole shows that try to get you to check out Netflix or subscribe. For us, our tentpole content is content created by your friends. And that's why it's so important for us to continue to protect that friend graph and make sure that people feel comfortable expressing themselves, because that's what brings people back into our service every day. And so then, when you're done checking out your friend stories and you're bored, you can just scroll down and check out a whole world of content on Snap.
So do you think of yourself as a media company, a tech company, or a social network?
Definitely a technology company.
But you sell advertising like a media company, and you're letting friends talk to each other more like a social platform. How do you explain this to investors and advertisers who are here?
I think the really important thing to understand is the central role of the camera, and the role of the camera in the way that it's changing all sorts of things that we do every day. So obviously the camera's dramatically altered communication. People now communicate visually in ways that weren't possible, even 10 years ago. And it's also obviously changed the media landscape for sure. So I think as we look at our company, we're a technology company focused on innovating around the camera, and that does end up impacting things like media and communication.
You just announced that you're opening up Snap to integrate with developers. Pandora is one of your launch partners. You're going to let people on Snap access Pandora, and Pandora access information about users. You criticize Facebook for doing this very thing and the risks that opened Facebook up to in terms of data privacy. Why are you doing this?
We think it's really important for people to understand that they can get a lot of value from developer products without compromising their privacy. So of course it's all in the way that you do it. And I think one of the things that we've done with our customers is built a lot of trust over time so that people understand when they use Snapchat that we're respectful of their data and give them choice about how that's used.
But why are you doing this at all? This is counter to the way you've been running Snap the past couple of years. Is it to reverse slowing user growth?
We haven't yet been in a position actually where we could expand all of the great services that we offer at Snapchat into other applications and services. So it's really only now, I guess, in the 6th year of our existence as a company that we've really been able to invest in growing other platforms as well.
You've been adding users, but the growth has been slowing. Do you think this specific addition, the integration with other apps, is going to be the thing that revs up growth again?
The thing we're really focused on when it comes to growth is really our Android product, which has unfortunately not been up to our standards for quite some time. So we've actually been investing in totally rewriting the Android product from the ground up, and we think that this modularization of Android is really what's going to push the business forward.
So that more so than the integration with Pandora and all these other apps?
I think that there are a lot of things that we're working on, obviously, to grow the business, but as I look at a big opportunity ahead, I think getting Android right is critical for us.
And what about this whole question of user data? Do you need to be accessing more data? Do you need to be giving developers access to more user data for you to really properly become a third player and compete with Facebook and Google?
I think today, given all the first-party data we have, and I think our very rigorous privacy policy, we've shown that we can effectively target ads and deliver ROI without compromising the integrity of user data.
And so what do you have to say to Mark Zuckerberg? Do you think you would have handled his Cambridge Analytica data scandal differently?
I think one of the really unique things is even from the beginning of our company, when we were in my dorm room or in my dad's house, we were thinking a lot about data minimization and these issues. And I think that it hasn't become clear until just recently, over the last few months, how important that is.
But so are you saying from the beginning you were more cautious? I mean, there were all sorts of concerns about screen grabs being taken of snaps that were meant to be private. I mean, it seems like these are issues for any app, any platform.
Well, I think if you go back to the beginning of Snapchat and really this focus on empowering people to express themselves, we believe that for you to feel comfortable expressing yourself, you need to have control over your data. If you don't know who's watching what you create, how can you feel comfortable communicating? And so for us, that focus on self-expression has really dictated the way that we built a business over time.
So you're saying you'll never have a data privacy issue the way that Facebook has?
Well, I wouldn't say that. We've definitely made mistakes, and we probably will make some in the future. But I think this trust that we've built with our user base over time by doing the right thing will certainly help us navigate any mistakes we make in the future.
Advertisers are also talking a lot about transparency. We just spoke to Unilever's CMO Keith Weed, and he said that he's really cracking down on influencers buying followers, on bots as fake followers. How important is that to you? You have a lot of influencers on your platform.
That is really important to us, and one of the things that we've done from the beginning is really focus on having real users, and we do that by doing a lot of advanced spam and bot detection, even as you're signing up for our service. And so rather than having this approach where I think other platforms just let these bots and fake users sort of proliferate and then just disclose the percentage of their users that they think are fake, what we do is try and just keep them off in the first place.
Are you referring to Facebook and Twitter there?
I think there's a variety of platforms that struggle with those issues.
You're doing a remarkable job of not uttering the word Facebook. I assume that's by design. So it sounds like you could reassure Keith Weed that he's fine in terms of influencers not having fake followers on Snapchat.
Well, our advertising model is really different. And so if you look at the advertising, Snap Ads, for example, or even our lenses, what we really try to do is integrate advertising into the user experience. And what we found is that on other services, when they rely too heavily on influencer advertising, it can feel like you're getting marketed to all the time, even when you're not viewing a so-called ad. So the endemic ad load, per se, is a lot higher on those services.
Speaking of influencers, Kylie Jenner did not like your redesign. How often do you hear from celebrities or popular influencers on the platform with problems and issues?
We hear from people all the time, and we love getting that feedback. I think it's really important to have that dialogue with our community and to help people understand why we're making the changes that we are, because ultimately there's going to be some bumps when we make a change, but we historically have always tried to do the right thing for the long term.
It has been 4 months since your initial redesign, and then you've tweaked it since then. Users responded pretty badly. Were you surprised?
I wasn't too surprised because my wife, first thing she said was like, "What are you doing?" So I thought it'd be a little choppy. But I think the really important thing is to help people understand that we're migrating from this world where the stories page was really just a finite list of your friends to now being a page that's open to a whole world of personalized content. And that's going to have to be something that we get good at over time. We're not going to be amazing at it overnight, but laying that foundation to open up the whole world of content on Snap rather than just a small list of your friends, while still protecting all the benefits of having a small friend graph on Snap, is really important to us in the future.
But do you think that the fact that people have responded so badly, do you think that damaged your brand in a more permanent way, or do you think you'll be able to earn back that trust, and in what way?
Well, I hope what happens is similar to what happened with our programmatic advertising transition, for example. People were really upset that we shifted to programmatic, and that was a very disruptive change for our business. But now, 18 months later, that was just very obviously the right thing to do. So I think, hopefully we look forward 18 months from now, or maybe at the next Cannes, and we can talk about all the great benefits of the redesign.
But if programmatic was the right decision to make, even though it was critiqued, the redesign, you've walked back some of those changes. Do you think critiques of the redesign were fair?
Absolutely. We definitely made some changes to the communication side of the service that we didn't need to make, and frankly, I'm happy with the changes we've made over there.
So when you look at your next couple of years, do you plan to do such dramatic changes to the app or other additions?
We're going to have to continue to do what's right for the business over the long term, and I think the three pillars that we have, the Lens Studio and Spectacles and Snapchat the application, are really coming together nicely now. So it's really important to us to stay focused and execute.
Can you imagine splitting them up and having a family of apps?
Not at this time, because I think we get so many benefits from the way that the little mini apps inside of Snapchat work together.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, our map application, I don't think we would see the same traction without that being an integrated service.
A lot of people have said that now that Facebook's under so much scrutiny and Google, they're both so massive, that gives more opportunity to you. When it comes to building out your family of apps, could you ever see making an acquisition?
We made great acquisitions in the past, and some fantastic teams have joined us, and so I wouldn't rule it out.
So 5 years from now, when we're sitting here, is Snapchat one app, or is it a family of apps like Facebook is?
I don't want to give that away, but we have a lot of work to do.
Just a final question about your focus on management of the company. There have been a number of executive exits. Do you need to invest more in recruiting top talent to come work at Snapchat?
It's something I'm constantly thinking about and working on. It's really important to us to constantly be improving the team, and that comes from growth. It also comes from new hires, and so I think Tim, for example, who just joined us as our new CFO, is fantastic. He's already making a big difference on the management team.
And just a final question: you control the stock at Snapchat. Would you ever consider changing that structure, potentially generating more shareholder value by giving shareholders a vote?
I'd never say never to anything, but at this point, I think Bobby and I have a shared long-term vision for the company, and we're executing against it.